may have just one or two more joining in, but we're going to go ahead and just get started. My name is Troy Simon. Also on board here is Michael Vassar. We are territory managers working with the Acumatica software. Glenn West, he's going to be presenting an overview today on the Acumatica product. So you're in listen-only mode, but I will be monitoring the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. You should be able to use the chat down there. If you just type your questions in as you have them, you don't have to wait till the end. I'll go ahead and monitor the chat box, and then as we get down to the end of the presentation, we will have time to take some questions about the product, and then we can certainly talk about any next steps and arrange any follow-up phone calls we may have to get you guys signed up for a more detailed presentation as it relates to your company. So the goal for today is not to give you everything, just to give you a good feel of how the product flows, how it works, how you could apply it to your business that you're doing now. And then we'll go to the next step with needs analysis and more one-on-one presentations for you guys. So appreciate everyone taking time out to join today. Again, just as you have those questions, fire away in the chat box, and we'll have plenty of time at the end to get them all answered. So Glenn, you can go ahead and get us started.
Okay, thanks, Troy. Thanks, folks, everybody, for attending. As Troy said, we're going to try to make this, get it within the hour and give you a high-level overview of the product and then functionality that's available, and set you up if you're interested in taking a closer look with one of the sales engineers. So we're going to look at Acumatica Construction Edition. Actually, this is a little bit older, so we're not under an NDA, so you don't have to worry about that. But we're going to give you an overview of the company. We'll look at the application, the Construction Edition, and then we'll jump in and actually show you the software. Acumatica itself was designed specifically for the cloud. So it's not a legacy application that's been ported forward or converted, or it was designed for the cloud. They made some big bets early on. This was probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where they bet on HTML5 and web services, and that's actually turned out to be a great bet. And that's probably one of the standard tools out there now, HTML5 and web services, when you're in the cloud. So the technology is what most people want to see. It's an ERP system at its core. The ownership of Acumatica comes out of an ERP world. They're designed this for small to mid-sized companies, so we're not trying to provide functionality like you might find in the big guys, nor the tiny. So we're not trying to be QuickBooks. We're trying to get you functionality, but still ease of use. When this was designed, they were assuming that we would see more and more companies that are cloud-based, and that has been the case. And these multi-cloud environments or connected clouds allow these tools to talk to other systems much easier and much more in a seamless way than you can with some of the legacy software that has to deal with being on different servers behind different things, older technology. And I'll walk you through some examples of how that happens. And then Acumatica uses distributors, so they don't sell the software directly. So Troy and Mike both work for a distribution company, and they handle the sales and they handle the consulting and report writing, and Acumatica itself handles the support of the product and the development of the product. Their idea has been really access the software from any device, anywhere you want. So are you at home and you're in the office? Are you on a PC? Are you on a Mac? Are you on a tablet? It doesn't make a difference. Even to the point of moving to the phone, there are apps available so you can work with your data on a phone with screens that are maximized for that environment. So this is done in responsive design software. So if you open the software on a tablet of a certain size, it's going to show one way. A smaller tablet will change the orientation so that you maximize what you see on the screen. For most customers, it utilizes an inclusive licensing model. That means they don't really care the number of users that you're looking at. They are really letting you give it to anybody you want, process with anybody you want. They're just monitoring the volume of transactions. So how much are you using the software really will determine what the price of the software is. So as you get bigger and process more transactions, the prices will float up. As you if you want to add people, you don't have to worry about calling saying, hey, I just hired a new employee. You just log in, set that employee up, and off you go. They use two models for the delivery. One's called a public cloud, or SaaS, and that's software as a service. Software is loaded up on AWS. Acumatica manages all of the servers and the data and everything. All you're doing is just logging in and manipulating and processing your software, your data. Simple, easy to use. You don't have to worry about any of the headaches of servers. All you need is a good connection to the internet. The other option is a private cloud, and that's for the small percentage of customers who have a full stack that they have. They want their own servers, they have it in their own cloud environment, and they want to put the Acumatica system inside their cloud. And this software will support that. So if you specifically want to put it on your own servers, wherever they happen to be, there's no problem with that. We can do it. We license it that way, and then you deploy and run the software that way. Acumatica is an international company. It's based in Seattle, but they have offices basically around the world. The only office I don't have on this map is they have a new one in Mexico City. But we see most of the development coming out of Mexico, Moscow, or Montreal, and then the support coming either out of Seattle, Columbus, or Virginia. And then we've got a couple other small offices around, but this is it. 3,000 customers as we go through here. One of the interesting things about the customer count is those 3,000 are Acumatica customers, but they also have white label partners or companies that have legacy software, legacy accounting systems. And when they look to move to the next generation in the cloud, they decided it would be a better investment on their time to find a platform that they can build on. And Acumatica is just that platform. So sometimes you'll see systems that out there that, like in MYOB Advanced, is Acumatica. And so when we do the count, it's probably not 3,000 customers. It's probably closer to 50,000. So it's a way for the software to be used and the distribution to get greater, larger, but it's still, in this case, they're very specific to individual environments that they need. These are some of the partners that we have. They call them ISVs. An ISV is someone that's writing software specifically for Acumatica. They're using their web services interface. They're designing to help certain industries, maybe that the core system doesn't hit. So as we look at this, you'll find there's some kind of unique worlds where we've got DocuSign or Adobe eSign built into the software. It's a service. The interface comes with the software, and really you're just paying for the DocuSign service as an example. Or Avalara is the same idea. We have an interface to Avalara. You can sign up with Avalara to take all their tax calculations down, or move to authorize.net, or as you move in here, you'll find each of these are going to try to provide you something specific that you may need, be it something like e-commerce. They've got some tools up there, or all types of stuff. So a lot of partners available. Again, 3,000 customers. These are just some of the customers that are out there today. Mostly they've been known for manufacturing and distribution retail. They've had a project accounting system for the last 6 years, but it really focused its time on professional service. So that happened about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Acumatica decided to get heavy into the construction world, and they've done a lot of development to expand their project accounting system to really be a construction solution. And we'll walk you through that. Awards recognition. They get awards all the time about the company, the product, the technology. So it's absolutely a system that is moving forward, state of the art. When we look at the platform, which is the kind of the building block, there's a lot of things out here that make it technically viable, technically attractive. You may not use all of them, and many of them are just switches you can turn on and off. But in many cases, as your company changes or grows or modifies, you'll be able to turn those tools on or utilize those tools. A couple examples of that is it is multi-language, and multi-currency. So if you're working on the borders, or you're in Canada and you're processing transactions that you're ordering from U.S. companies, or you're in the islands and you're ordering from U.S., or you're the U.S. and you're ordering from China, if you're truly processing multi-currency. Application supports it. Localization, so by person or by area, you can change the system so that if you prefer it to be in Spanish, absolutely support that capability. Multi-entity, if you have multiple companies, we can do that. We have intercompany accounting, consolidated financials, all just as a part of the software. We'll kind of walk through some of these as we see them. We've got templates to speed setup. We've got workflow capabilities, so you can change the way the software works. Security, we can get into by company or by module or by feature. There's a full mobile system available. So if you wanted to see the software on your phone, you can get in and do expenses and receipts and approvals and POs and subcontracts from your phone, which is optimized to the phone. Dashboards also work on the phones, and dashboards will work on the system, and we'll walk through those. But the big idea here is the dashboards are user defined. We ship the system with dashboards. You can actually modify them or design your own. They're visual, they're drill down, they're right down to the transactions if you need to. They can be charts or tables or whatever you want them to see. Our report writer can actually be utilized as widgets on the dashboard. You can design reports, put them on the dashboard, take the reports, run them, use that data in dashboard widgets if you want. Any of the reports can go to Excel. The reports are drilled down to transactions, so you can always see where the data came from. We have financial reports in there, kind of standard financial data. We also have a tool called a generic inquiry. It's like a report. It's drilled down, tends to maybe look more like a spreadsheet. We don't have really complex sorting and totaling, but it does allow me to take that data and move it right into an internal pivot table. So now when we start looking at the data, we have the same capabilities you might use in Excel to manipulate, sort, drag and drop, move things around. Approval systems. If you have AP bills and you want to scan a bill and attach the bill and then have the bill route for approval, we have that built into software, just the core. So as we look at POs or jobs or subcontracts or AP bills or expense claims, you can take those, enter them in. We'll have an approval and a notification and assignment map, so we can really manage the transactions as they flow through the organization automatically. Any screen that we see in the software, I have an ability to import or export from. So if you, for whatever reason, have a really specific estimating system and you want to bring data in from your estimating system, it's as easy as just developing a quick import scenario to the estimate screen, and then we can process that data. And so we don't have to do any custom programming to do that. We could use a web service if it was a web-based estimating system to make it more seamless from a cloud perspective, but most clients are very happy with the ability to do these scenarios. And the final one I'll show you is all of the entry grids that we're on. We can just pull Excel right into the grid. So you've got a lot of ways to get data in the software. Workflow automation. If you want to change the way the software works, we can do that. We've got notification, which is as things are happening in the data. If we want to send notifications out to people that there's certain processes happening or didn't happen or we're waiting on things, you can do that inside and outside the organization. Full GL, multi-entity, unlimited number of budgets that we can bring in from Excel, so I can compare actuals to budgets and budgets to budgets and actuals to actuals. So all that's available. In our cash system, we can import bank transactions, so we're looking at the typical bank downloads that are available there. Payables, invoice routing. In the construction world where we start getting into a little bit more, we now support retainage and joint checks and compliance, and we can do point of sales if we need, wire transfers, and the AR side of the house. It's really where we're starting to get into excuse me, construction-oriented things. Other side of the coin, we handle retainage here. We can do schedule of value billings. We can do T&M billings. Projects, really sophisticated project costing system now. You can build templates around certain types of projects, and so when you set up a new project, it'll bring a template in. We handle purchase orders, subcontracts, change orders. There's material management, so if you want to do purchasing requisitions, we do schedule of value billings, and we can do that at multiple levels, or pro forma billing, or cost plus if you need to. Full purchasing capability. The interesting thing here is because we have not only construction, but we also have distribution capabilities, we can get into the sales orders and purchase order connection there. We can do purchase order and inventory. All of that's potentially available if you need it. If you don't want inventory, don't use inventory. It's a suite of modules that you can decline, and then you're just dealing with maybe a specific construction orientation. We have our own CRM system. That CRM system it's a great tool, but we've also found over the years that people have made some commitments or bets on other solutions, and so we've done an interface to Salesforce.com. So if you like Salesforce, but you still want to get data in from Salesforce into our CRM so that it's easier to move it into other areas, that's available. There's a portal available. At this point, it's dealing with just customer information, but it would allow a customer to go in, review their invoices, review what's going on with their account, look at anything that may be happening. They're working on exposing that more to the vendor side of the house. I think it's a little more appropriate for construction. That should be something available in 2018. Fixed asset system, time and expense tracking. So we can capture time and expenses, go through an approval process. There's also a payroll system available. You kind of decide. It's kind of a unique world where you can do time tracking right in the accounting system, the costing system, and not worry about payroll. So we've got a lot of clients who use an ADP or an outside payroll system, and they want to get labor on jobs, and they'd like to do it from timesheets, but they don't necessarily want to use payroll. And so we can handle that scenario. We have our own payroll solution. We can handle that scenario. The payroll solution can be simple gross to net, where you're responsible for cutting the checks and doing the tax deposits, and that service is also can be a true payroll service where you're just entering your time and the service will handle everything else. So pretty unique offering for you around payroll. Got interfaces. We've got an interface that we're finalizing right now to Supply Pro out of Hyphen. So in the production home building world, all the people that are out there pulling data down from purchase orders from these big builders, we handle that, and we're finalizing our Procore interface as well. These are just some of the interfaces that we've found that people seem to be interested in. We have Adobe Sign and DocuSign, but we also have Microsoft Power BI and Smartsheet.net, and there's an interface to Outlook. So these are all the web. This is Outlook 365, so all the web services make it really easy to connect these. And I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go through this. Later, if we have some time, we can look at what the mobile looks like. But let me just pause there. I'm going to go out now, and I am going to go into Acumatica. So what I've done is I've logged into Acumatica, and if you look over here, you can see I've got a couple companies. And so inside each one of these folders, I can have multiple entities. In this world, my home builder database and my company are very different. The setup's different, the data is different, but because I'm an administrator, I can go into either one of the companies. And when I'm in the company, I'm seeing the data specifically in that company. As I move to the secondary company, I see the data there. And if I want to do consolidated reporting, I can do it across multiple companies. That's just very easy to come in here. When I look at my profile, this is where I come out and I'm identifying who I am, what my login is, how do I handle reset of passwords, what my localization is going on here, how do I want to get emails. So there's a bunch of things that we look at within the software. It's fairly sophisticated around the end user, the individual. So my login has me in this version of Acumatica. Along the left, I can see my menu, and on the right, I can see my dashboard. The menus are user defined, and so if you want to change anything, if you decide you would rather call this not construction, but you want to call it contracting, you can come out here and change the contracting. If you're in construction and you want to take items off of menus or turn items from a menu item to a tile, or you want to make them favorites or not, all that can be done by individual. You can do it by company and then make everybody use the same one. But we will give you the ability to take it down to a very low level if you want. So as we look at these, each one of these represent different areas in the system. I've got finance and compliance and inventory. You can drop and drag and move these around. You can put them on the secondary menu. So if you're really not working with sales orders, you can hide it in the back. Or if you're not really working with CRM, those will go away. We put them, drag them, hide them as we don't need them. When I click on one of these, again, it's going to show me what's going on in the menu. I have quick menus here. If I click this button, that's going to give me my all menu. So you can see all the different dashboards that we may have here. I'm looking at a project dashboard right now, but if I were to switch over to the controller dashboard, it just pulls up a different look at the data. Each one of these KPIs actually gives me an ability to drill down. So if I click on it, it'll take me out in this case and show me all my cash accounts that I have here. If I go back to my dashboard, you see it takes me back to my first dashboard. This is my default dashboard that will always be there when I move back. If I want to move around into the different areas, it's very quick and easy just to grab the dashboard that maybe is a little bit different. I pull it up. This will get me to the data that I need to see. Again, all of these are modifiable. Change the way they work, change the color. All of them are drill down. So as we move into any of these areas, I can just drop in, drill down, see where the reports, see where the projects are. And once I've gotten to a project, I can just click on the project and it will open it for me. And depending on how you've set the system up, what that just did is it opened the project in its own tab. If you want the project to open in the container, we can do that as well. So it's very easy to control what the experience is like for the end user. So I'm sitting on a project, a lot of information here. The design has been from day one to try to keep people on as close to one screen as possible. So you're not going from module to module and program to program, but almost everything we want to do here. So while I'm sitting on the project, the first tab is basically asking me some setup issues. Are we going to process change orders? Or are we going to allow people to run the job without change orders? Are we going to do pro forma billings or are we going to do time and material billings? A lot of these setup items can be defined as a template. And so if you have jobs that you process the same way and you want to have the settings the same way, you can set the job up one time and then go save it as a template. And then once the template's there, I can go ahead and set up a new job, spin it off to the template, and it will set it up for me. And you'll find as we look through here, you'll have some normal environments where I can start to look to see what's going on. In this case, if I want to set it up as a template, I just create the template from here. And when I go out to look at the template, this is where I would do that. So set up the basics. I'm going to go to the revenue tab. Revenue is where we look at the schedule of values. In this case, I'm doing progress billing on this job. And I can define the schedule of values to be very detailed or a little bit more summary. And I can group them. In my case, this job's set up to have a schedule of values and then also a cost code. So I'm going to go to a pretty detailed billing. But if I want to review the job and just look at it from a higher level, I can come out and say, I want to go and now just see what my top line schedule of values are. And that can be done really simply just by clicking on that one environment. We also give you an ability to use filters. And so if I look at a filter as an example, is if you use the screen over and over and you really wanted to have a filter that showed up, you could say, let me add a filter that I'm going to apply to the screen that's going to show me only those line items that fit a certain criteria. And so you come out here and you go do a new criteria where I can say, I just want to look at all jobs that have labor or an account group or a certain retainage percentage, or any of these values. I can start to build my criteria and my filter. And anytime you see that, that means there's a filter on that screen. And as we move screen to screen, you will find that they're there. So typically, if there's a screen, it's probably a filter for us. I'm going to move over to the cost budget. Cost budget, very similar screen, right? Spreadsheets. If you wanted to pull this information in, I can export the information, including the column headings. I can also import off of an Excel spreadsheet, and the software will match column headings. So it'll match our column headings to the column headings in the Excel spreadsheet. So if we can match those, then we can import any data right into the software. So I've got now a job that's set up with subjobs, and then within the subjobs, I've got cost codes. so I can look to see exactly what did I budget, if I've got any commitments, change orders, all that is being processed from one screen. If you don't like the order of the screen, you can move any of these values around, move them up or down, move them off the screen if we don't use them, to make this very simple. This can be done for the organization or can be done for an individual. So we can really define what my screen looks like. If you decide you want to move this around for just this session, I can just drag and drop these things around. Really easy to do that. So you can change it on the fly if you want. If you see something here, in this case, again, I can filter off of this grid. I can come over here now and the software will say, I'm looking at this one line item for final cleanup. I budgeted 800. I've got commitments of 750. If I click view commitment detail, it will show me all of the commitments that have been issued on that line item. And now if I look, I can see that this commitment was associated with that project budget line item. So now I'm out here seeing superior janitorial. I can see it's on a specific project subjob. I can see here too that there's got some compliance issues on the job. So we're going to get warnings and notifications as we move through here. I can look at this point and see what's happening with this. If it's not an interest to me, I can close it, go back. I can move around here, find other commitments on different line items if we want. If I want to go look at transactions, any line item, I hit view transactions. So any transaction that's been associated with that project is now going to show up here. So if someone says, what do we got going on concrete? I can go to the line item, click that. I can limit it down if I want or grab everything. But in this case, I've got a bunch of labor transactions because I'm asking for the labor on that cost code. Again, you can start to use this filter to get to any of the data that you want to see. Once I get to the data, I can again modify these screens, add values, take values away. If I see the value that I want in here and I want to drop it in Excel, I do that very quickly. So you can move through this in a timely manner. Go along here. These are the employees that I've got set up to work on this project. I got pieces of equipment that I've used on the project. And then I go into my change order. So I'm going to back up 1 second. I'm going to go to the revenue tab. I'm going to come over here and look at my percent complete right here. If I want to generate a progress bill for this job, I actually just put in a percent complete or a dollar value I want to bill, and I hit run project billing. And so from this screen, we'll go ahead and generate the pro forma associated with this project. Once the pro forma is generated and I click on the invoice button, this will show me all of the invoices that I have outstanding. So I've got one that's open, a couple that are closed. They've all been driven off of this one screen. If I click on the pro forma and I look at it, I can see exactly what were the line items that I billed, what was the total amount that's out there. So it's really simple and easy to see what's going on. If you wanted to take this and send it to somebody, I could say, let's print the pro forma invoice. It goes out and generates the invoice. The formats are all user defined. If I tell it I want to go take that pro forma to a PDF, and let's just say, for example, I'm going to take this now and I'm going to pull this pro forma up, and I want to go ahead and save it somewhere because I need to see it. I'm going to go put it to my sample invoices, and so let's say we'll call this invoice 21. So now I've got this in here. I go back to my pro forma right here, and let's say I want to go ahead and I'm going to attach that pro forma, and so I'm going to go browse for it, and we'll see if we've got one out here. Pro forma 221. So now I upload that invoice. So I've put in my data, I've generated the invoice, I've got it now in the system. I can take that invoice and just attach it to the pro forma and then send it right to DocuSign. And then within DocuSign, I can identify where I want the signatures, and then I can route it for approval. Once it's been approved, it will actually connect that approved version and it will load it right in here. And so we have this kind of unique DocuSign, Adobe Sign capability that is just part of our file capabilities. So it's kind of a unique world. It's available everywhere. Whoops, there's my GoToMeeting. So if I were to go back and look at this job again, and I'll finish out what we're looking at. If we were looking at a change order, same kind of idea, and I wanted to process a change order, I can come onto the job. I can create a change order here. I can go look at a change order. When we look at the change order, it has a very similar screen to what we might see within the project. So we've got revenue. So these are the line items that I'm affecting in the change order. I can modify existing line items. I can add new line items in here. I can see exactly what the impact of this change is on my revenue. I can modify the budget, add budget line items, change values in existing line items, both up or down. And then I can identify commitments. So who's doing the work for me? I can add new commitments. I can add new line items to existing commitments. I can change values on existing commitments, all from one screen. We end up showing you what the revenue, what the budget, what the commitments are, and we'll get you to a gross margin and a gross margin percentage here so I can see exactly where we are. But the same idea is if I attach that change order and I come out into edit, I've got a change order document I want someone to sign, I can take it right into DocuSign, route it to someone for approval. They'll go through, change it, last step, signed version gets attached to the file here. Just quick and easy, off we go. So I'm going to go back here for a second. Actually, there's two more things, sorry. I got out of there a little bit too quick. Let me go in here. I'm going to go grab that project, and you can see it opened it a little bit differently. That's kind of a capability within the software to determine how and where we open things. And I'm opening it off of a dashboard inside the container, and I'm opening it, if we do it a different way, off of an object, and in the dashboard, it opens a little bit differently. So we looked at change orders. We can look at activity history. This is where it's linked right to our CRM system. So if you're using our CRM system and we're starting to capture, talks or emails or chats or appointments, we don't have to use one system for CRM. We can use this one. It's embedded. So as we look at customers and projects and vendors and employees, you'll see wherever it shows the activity history is where I can start to book activity right against this. We can also email in and out of the system. I can send and receive and attach. We have attributes. These are user-defined fields. You can have attributes for different types of jobs, and basically on every screen, if we're missing values that you want to keep or you want to add for reporting, you can do that. We can look at different GL accounts. Again, it's a little more technical, but this takes me to my balances, so I can show you what my income and my expense types are. I can go look at transactions. So if I highlight something and say, hey, show me the transactions, software will drill me out now and show me. In this case, I'm looking at all of the transactions associated with the revenue. So these are all the line items that we have on a billing. If I go down here into labor, same kind of idea, show me the transactions. So show me all the labor that's out there. Again, we're trying to get you the ability to get to the detail, drill to the detail, do it from one screen. Got commitments. These are purchase orders and subcontracts. These are all of them that are associated with this project. If I go out and click on one of the commitments, it'll take me right to the commitment, and the same capability here. I can look to see what's going on with this commitment, what the document is, what we committed to. I can see if there's any tax impact. If we're shipping it, we can look at the shipping. I can look to see vendor information. If we've done receipts against the PO, we'll show here. If we've got change orders, they'll show here. If we've got compliance issues, they'll show here. If I got to that from one screen. As I move through here, these are all my pro forma invoices. These are my mail settings. What we do here is we'll let you have a default set of forms. So if you have a change order form, an invoice form, whatever you've got, pro forma forms. But if you want to modify those forms for a specific project, you do that here. We can go in and look at compliance. Compliance for us is an ability to keep track of things that we're worried about. Lien waivers, releases, notices. You can actually add those in many places in the system. So not only on projects or sub-projects, but vendors and subcontracts and POs and project transactions and change orders. It's just an ability to figure out where things are and where we stand on the job to try to help you limit some of the exposure that you might see. We've got the ability here to get into other areas. We can, once we put in a budget, if I want to lock it, it will require everything to go through change orders. If you've done the buyout on the project, We can lock all the commitments, again, force everything through change orders. We'll have basic reports in here. So as we get to projects, I can look at it here, but I can also come out and say, what are we looking for in a report basis? So we'll have typical project reports like profitability and commitment reports, some budget reports, some WIP reports, and then we'll have inquiries. These are ones that are more of a drill down orientation. Actually, the reports work the same way, and then we can get into forms. So really kind of easy to navigate as you move through the system. Depending on where you are, you can just navigate right into a screen. So if we want to go look at bills and adjustments, I can come out. It's going to give me a list of all the bills and adjustments, the AP bills. If I grab one of the bills just to look at real quick, we can see the screens are very similar. So at this point, I see I've got a bill coming in here. It's open. I can see that it came in from this specific vendor and see what the bill amount is. So I go down here, the document details. This is showing me for each line item, where did the document come from? So it's associated with the subcontract. I can see exactly where things stand on this from this one screen. I can show you the financials. So if someone said, great, that AP bill is posted, where did it go? We give you an ability just to pull up and go look to see what the journal transactions were. So these are all the journal entries that were associated with that AP bill. We can look at tax or discounts or retainage that's going on here. I can also see if there's any applications that are associated with this, and then I've got compliance that are out here. We use the files, same idea. I can scan the AP bill, link it, I can go to my actions. If I'm using my approval system, I can route the AP bill for approval. I don't have my approval system turned on, but it would show up in here as either approve or reject. But everything I need to do on this bill can typically be done right from this one screen. I go from here. Usually if we're looking at things, you'll also find areas down here where you can say, hey, if this was a PO and I wanted to add a receipt, I can do it on the fly. If I want to add a PO or subcontract to a bill because they're kind of a little backwards, most of those things we can do right on the fly. I don't have to get out and go to another screen to do that. Same idea here, customers. So where I can manipulate customer information. Got compliance information. And so when we look to see what's going on in here, I can say, what is going on in my compliance. And in this case is when I can start to see all my compliance. We track certificates and insurance and notices and lien waivers, and then kind of an other for anything else that you've got. You define what the subcategories are within here. And then these are showing up across all of the menus from the construction perspective, but I can always come in and find them here as well. So a couple of things I want to show you here. I think we're getting close to just a really high level of what the software would do. We do want to show that the dashboards can have different orientation. I'm just going to see if I can find a good one that will show. Actually, let me do this, folks. Let me switch over to another company. It's got that dashboard's locked for my ID. I'm just going to switch to a different company. Go look at a different dashboard. So dashboards can be HTML oriented, like visual, where you can show people what the flow is that we're working. So this is kind of a nice way to show us from a warehouse perspective or from a CRM perspective, what are we doing in the software? Or they can be much more of a workflow oriented, like here's an AP clerk, and then the clerk will show exactly the things that they're responsible for. So I can see I don't have any orders to invoice, but I can see that I've got some that are over 90 days. And if I want to go see who those are, I can pull them up to the screen very quickly and just drill down right to the customer and see what it is we want to do with that. So kind of a nice way to define what that person's going to see and do while they're sitting in one screen. Let me go look here. I think, for an initial review, I think we just wanted to give you an idea of what it looked like, how things worked, and we'll probably open up to any questions you may have. And then if you're interested, Troy or Mike would be the person that would set you up. We'd figure out what your detail requirements are, and then how do we move forward so we can show you specifically what you need on your software. So Troy, you got any other questions in there?
Yeah, we've got a couple that have come in, and guys, if you want to just use the question box there on the side of your screen or the chat box, whichever, that's fine. Um, how scalable is the solution, Glenn? As you know, average use to the larger size? I mean, is it for someone doing 20 homes a year or 1,000 homes a year? What's the fit there?
So technically, the engine can scale up as large as you want. I think out of the box, we could very easily handle the small to mid-sized builders right within the software, because we can automate and we can speed things up. If you're going to build a lot of homes, I think you're probably going to have to connect this to a more of a production builder environment that's handling all of the transactions that you go through when you're doing the models and options and selections and all that. And then we would just become the accounting system for that. And we can walk you through some of the folks we've talked to about that, or if you're using a production system, we could see if there's an opportunity there to work with it. But we're telling people small to mid-sized builders and multifamily right out of the system. You don't have to do any modifications or pull other solutions in. But if you're 1,000 homes, I would absolutely think you'd have a operation solution connected to this.
Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned they can import their budget right into Acumatica, correct?
Correct. I'll show you how that works real quickly, just so you get an idea. It's really pretty simple. So if we go onto any screen, and let's just say it's a budget, there are two ways I can do it. I'll grab this. If I go to the cost budget, this grid is an import capability where I can come out and go find an Excel spreadsheet. We open the Excel spreadsheet and we compare the column headings in the two sheets, the column heading on our screen, the column heading in your sheet. If we can match those up, then we'll just pull in the budget right from the system. So we can do it from Excel. We also have this tool, which is called an import scenario. If you are doing this on a recurring basis, I can go to any screen in the system and I can identify that on projects, I want to go into a work area and I want to go enter, and I want to go and enter a project transaction. And so from here, this allows me to import more of a bulk environment. Project transaction could be something like a budget. And we can do this on any screen. So any screen that you see that has entry capability, we can import using a scenario. So if it's a recurring thing that goes on, I'm always importing change orders or I'm always importing budgets, we can do it simply screen by screen, or we can do it as a scenario where we can import multiples.
Okay. Can users create custom forms, input forms?
So we can do that. I wouldn't say users can, but there's an ability to do that. We call that customization. We'll say customization project. So if you wanted to have a customization where we changed your input form to be specific to the way you folks or whoever wants to do it, we do that in a way using the Acumatica set of tools, and we publish your change into your tenant. And so your customized entry screens are running inside the standard version of Acumatica, inside whatever tenant. So even though we're a SaaS-based environment, we absolutely can modify any part of the system that you want. It's just a matter of how complex is the modification and who does it.
Okay. Let's see. Another question came in. We're a modular manufacturer and often find we're blended between construction and manufacturing. Is there a way to blend these additions of the software?
Absolutely. We can do it a couple ways. If you are running those organizations as different, we call them branches, but they're really companies. So if I look at a branch as an example, I could set up modular and I could set up custom. And if they were different federal ID numbers, we could have those two set up very different, but still merge them together. If they were really just divisions or departments within the company, we can do that as well. and we could set them up as more of a department. And then inside each one of those branch, which could be a company or a department within the company, you can control what they use. So we've got a bunch of companies that say, you know, in my modular world, I'm really driving things differently. It's more like manufacturing. And so I don't need necessarily all of the construction features. We may use the distribution modules, or we may use the manufacturing modules for that scenario. But when we're over in the other side, we're actually going to go off of the construction modules. So it's kind of a unique world. Go ahead.
Yeah, Troy. I think that may have answered their question. It was just to clarify, and it was they're not two separate businesses. They build homes in a manufactured setting. I'm assuming a warehouse type setting. Then they'll take it to the site and set it up. So
yeah, and so when we look at that, there may be a different process they go through, and we can absolutely define so that that's a type of project that may change the way things work, or it may be a department, or there's a bunch of ways to do that, but this could absolutely handle either of those scenarios or them together.
Gotcha. Another one here. I think that must have answered their question. He said thank you. Do you offer a sandbox for your customers? If so, is there an additional cost?
So we look at different versions. There is a sandbox capability, and we typically see that when clients will want to take a look at a new version and not necessarily upload it or implement it. And it is there, and usually there's a limited amount of time on the sandbox that's included, but you can always call Acumatica and say, I need to spin up a sandbox for some amount of time, and there is a fee, and one of these guys could probably tell you what that monthly fee is for sandboxes.
All right. And another question came in. We're obviously looking at a lot of people that were at the Builder Show, but they said, what about commercial projects like movie theaters and hospitals? This works just as well for the general contractors as well as the residential builders, right?
Absolutely. So what we find is going to be different is when we set up a company, let's say a commercial, when we go in and we set that company up, either be it in a branch or in a setup here, we're probably going to turn some features on. See if I've got them. Like one of them may be that we're going to turn on a cost code function. And then when I turn on the cost code function, I'm going to set up maybe the CSI instead of the builder's codes. So you really can tweak the way the core system works. And then when I'm in that world as a commercial builder, we're still doing subcontracts and we're doing POs, we're doing change orders. The forms are different. We're doing progress billings, but we're using AIA forms instead. We have all the compliance capabilities. So this definitely was designed to cross from building to commercial construction. And then for those folks who say we're bigger commercial and I need project management capabilities, there's version 1, there'll be an interface to Procore. And so you could use Procore as a project management tool. If you have one you like, we can work to implement it. I know Acumatica is working on a lot of the project management functions that will be kind of a simple project management will be available in the software. So a bunch of ways to do that.
Great. Another one more question came in. Can you add custom fields or use current available fields to tag records? So customers, vendors, invoices, can you tag them by class or location?
You absolutely can. So in every table, so customers, jobs, projects, we call them attributes, and an attribute is a custom field. And so when we go into the database, and I'll just show you, actually this is kind of a unique one. I have been using it, but I haven't told you about it, is as you're sitting on any screen, if you're looking for something in the solution, if you go into the global search and you start typing, it will come out and it will look at what you've typed in there, and it will see if there's any menus that match that, but it will also show you if there's any transactions. So if you're a controller looking for an invoice of a certain dollar size, or I'm looking for a PO with a certain description in it, by using the global search, it'll look across the menus and the transactions and the help articles to see if there's anything sitting out there. So we go into attributes. This is where I can come out now and say I'm going to set up an attribute, and I give it an attribute ID. So let's just say it's color. And so then I come down here and I say it's going to be color, and I can tell the type. So let's say it's going to be multi-select on color. And then I can come down here and I will just go ahead and say it's going to be, I'm going to get black if I want. I want to get another one. It's going to be red. And I'm going to get another one that is going to be purple. So I build what the value is here, in this case purple, and I save it. And so now when I go out into any of the area of the system and I want to add an attribute, typically I can expose an attribute everywhere, but I can also be specific and I can build it into templates. So if I look to see what the attributes were here, actually I don't have it set up right, but those attributes are available everywhere. And they're just as if our engineer did it. They're available within the report writers, the queries, anything you want to do, it's there for you. Sorry, I don't know what I do here.
Well, that's great. Well, I think that wraps up all the questions here. Glenn, I just wanted to talk real quickly, if you're done with your screen share.
Yep.
Okay. Let me just show my screen real quick here. So kind of what's maybe a next step for you guys. The thing we'd probably want to do is for those of you that are interested and you say, hey, this looks great, it's close, but we need some more information. Typically what we do is a needs analysis. I usually tell everyone to just kind of book 30 minutes to an hour on the phone. Some of them are quicker, but depending on your needs and how much is involved in the demo, we want to make sure we really understand your business. Maybe even get some sample reports or your cost code set up and invoicing, anything that might be special or unique to how you do business. And so then from there, we'll build an agenda for our, the one-on-one presentation. We'll get you some initial pricing of what we feel just based on that conversation. We'll get you a initial budget set up of what would be entailed with software and implementation. And then we'll get into the demo. And then, of course, once we get into the demo, there may be some additional questions, as you see things that prompt things. And so we can tweak any follow-up demos or pricing scenarios based on that right there. The demos are usually online. We can come on site depending on where you're at and what your needs are. But most of the time we can handle everything through GoToMeeting. And then we can do an implementation review. We can talk about the services and support and how we're gonna get you guys started from purchase to go live and going through that first year. And we'll get you together any final proposal or follow-up items that we have to to use to move forward. So that's kind of the flow in a high-level view. Of course, there's lots of moving parts in there along the way, but myself or Mike, we're here to help sort of navigate those waters for you guys. And let me see if there's any more questions. I think a couple more may have just popped up.